my sledgehammer.
Okay.
Call the meeting to order. All those can please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so just a reminder, when you speak, make sure you turn your mic on, get it close to your mouth. If you can hear yourself from the speakers, you've got it right. So, all right. So, do roll call, please.
We have all board members present except for Mr. Howe, who has sent his regrets. He's out of town.
All right. I have no changes requested for the agenda. So if somebody could make a motion for the approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support, Sylvia.
Make sure you get the mics off there. All right, moved and supported. Vote please.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Sylvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
All right, item number 5, consent agenda approval. Can we get a motion?
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support Lewis.
Moved and supported. Vote please.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Sylvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Announcements and information. The Highland Township offices are closed on Monday, July 3rd and Tuesday, July 4th in observance of Independence Day. The Highland Township Red, White and Blues Festival will be on June 24th, 2023 in the old middle school grounds next to the north of us. They start at 4 and with special we have the, what do you call that? Kid zone and crafts and that type of thing, music. And then the fireworks go off at dusk. The Sounds Like Summer Concert Series begins July 11th at 7 in Veterans Park. And the Farmers Market is Saturdays beginning June 17th at Milford Road and M59. So do we have any public comment at this time?
I have a question.
Yes,
Oh, I mean, is that?
you can. Put your mic on.
For the monthly report, in Fire Station 3, it used to be $1,000 to run and now it's 11,000. Are you guys fully manning that?
Fire Station 3 is not fully manned. No, it's still paid on call. So
So last year in 2022, it was 1,000.
that's people that are responding from that station.
Oh, okay.
We have our personnel divided per station. So how much it costs per station to run. All of our people are divided up. Like whoever lives closer to Station 3 actually responds to Station 3 from home, and they take an apparatus out of there, depending on what the call is.
Okay.
So Station 3 had basically the month before didn't have a lot of people out of Station 3 that were able to respond that month. This month, there was a lot more response on the paid on call from that side.
All right. It was just such a
Yeah,
big increase.
Yeah, it was actually last month was kind of a fluke for how much it dropped.
Gotcha.
One of our members from Station 3, well, actually 2 of the members that live in Station 3's area that normally respond to a lot of our calls, actually both picked up full-time jobs other places, so their responses are down quite a bit. So
Gotcha.
if the runs don't fall when they're home, then it doesn't work out very well.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
No problem.
Right, any other questions or comments? Okay, the next item is a presentation by Plant Moran. And this is our annual audit report. So test that mic there to see what
Is
happens.
this on? I think it's working.
Okay.
Everybody can hear me okay? Okay, perfect. No problem. While Rick is doing that and pulling up the presentation, I'm Amanda Kronk, Senior Manager with Plant Moran. With me tonight is Nicole Hart. She is the senior on the Township's audit, and we're going to present the results of the audit to you tonight. Pam sends her regards. She wasn't feeling well today. She was bummed to not be able to be in this beautiful building and present to you tonight, but we are here. So a couple things that are in front of you tonight, a few deliverables. One, you have a copy of the Township's financial statements as of December 31st, 2022. You also have a copy of our required audit communications, so your audit letter, and a presentation that I distributed earlier. So first, I would be remiss if I didn't start with thank yous. The audit takes a lot of time and a lot of effort on the Township's part. So not only Tammy, Rick, and Jennifer, Amy and Karen both put in an enormous amount of time and effort to get ready for our audit, and accounting standards are not getting any simpler and are making accounting far more time consuming and tedious. So we wouldn't be here tonight without everyone's help. So we just really thank you for all of your time and cooperation added on to amongst your daily tasks. Tonight, we want to cover just a few highlights that are in the graphical printed presentation. Instead of spending your evening going over the 50 pages, we provided and summarized that in the few slides that we'll go over tonight. I did want to cover just a couple pages in that bound financial statement though first. Pages 1, 2, and 3, you will find our opinion on the Township's financial statements. And I just wanted to point out a couple things. First of all, we have issued what's called an unmodified opinion. So in your bound financial statements. Yep, we have issued what's called an unmodified opinion. So that means that the Township's financial statements are free from material misstatement. So that's always the goal, right? So you don't ever want to have a modified opinion. So that's kind of the gold standard, if you will. On page 1, towards the bottom there, you'll see what's called an emphasis of matter. This is just alerting the reader to the fact that the Township did have to adopt a new accounting standard related to how it's accounting for leases. So not anything bad. It's just alerting the reader that, hey, something changed from last year. And there's a new footnote and some new information. So for all of you, the Township did and does now record a receivable mainly related to the cell phone tower leases, and then an offsetting deferred inflow, meaning that over the next number of years, you're going to be collecting revenue related to those agreements. Again, more accounting, right? Everything just keeps evolving and getting a little bit more complicated, but just wanted to point that out since that is a change to that opinion from last year. As I mentioned, Nicole and I do have a few prepared comments related to the financial activity of the Township during the year. So I thought maybe what we could do is go through the graph presentation. Certainly, if there are questions, we'd be happy to take those as you have them. So Nicole's going to kick us off.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here. See you all again. So the slides that I'm going to present, they have the general fund and the capital improvement fund together. As you know, the general fund has been funding some of the capital improvement projects. So to get a better representation, we have included those together for these first few slides. So the first one has to do with revenue sources. And so revenue has been pretty consistent. Most of these pieces of the pie here are darn near the same as last year. Biggest changes that we have is in the federal grants. That is up about 700,000 from last year, and that is due to the ARPA funding that was received. So the township has decided to spend that on employee costs. So then that works out good. The other piece that has changed is a little bit is the state shared revenue, and that's up about 145,000 from last year. So everything else pretty consistent. So on the next page, expenditures, again, very similar situation here. So most of these pieces of the pie are very similar. Biggest change is going to be that public works is taking up a lot bigger piece of the pie this year. That is just due to the township renovations that we're all aware of. So about 4 million there. So next page is the fund balance. So as we can see, fund balance is down from last year, and that's no surprise. Again, township renovations. So one of the things that we did want to point out is that the unassigned fund balance that you have is about 60% of your general fund expenditures. So, and what that means is that if no revenue was coming in, you could cover those general fund expenses for about 7 months. So there is no like golden area to be in or perfect metric or whatnot. Last year you were at about 70%, so very consistent. And you guys it just shows you're monitoring that as you should be according to your general fund policies. So I turn it back over to Amanda.
One thing I will add on the general fund unassigned is I get the question quite a bit. Well, what should the percentage be, right? So how much should we have in unassigned as compared to our annual expenditures? And there is no right answer, but what I can tell you is, certainly looking at what needs you have coming at you. I mean, you've done a lot of major construction without issuing debt for all of that. I don't think a lot of communities can say that. And so again, it's just, you've put a lot of planning into that, into being able to do that. And again, it's just thinking about those things. What needs do we have coming at us? Are we going to save for them or are we going to bond for them? And that's really what's driving this unassigned fund balance. So what's sitting in your reserves, if you will, to pay for those improvements or needs that are coming your way. So while the state doesn't issue any, you got to be in this particular range, it is important to think about what your needs are going to be maybe over the next 5 years or, and how you're going to utilize your fund balance that you currently have. The next slide, I wanted to just briefly cover the township's financial statements from a long-term perspective. So your general fund is very short-term focused, and it doesn't report any long-term assets or long-term liabilities. So what this slide does, it layers those in. So it layers in your long-term capital assets and the debt associated with those. So you can see that gold bar, that top portion of the bar, keeps growing every year, right? It's grown almost every year pretty consistently. And that represents your investment in your assets, in your township assets. So, and that is with any offsetting debt removed. So that's taking your total capital assets less any debt associated with those assets. You guys you don't have a lot of debt. I know you did bond for the public safety construction, but other than that, you don't have any debt. So as you continue to invest in your infrastructure, that gold bar is going to keep getting bigger and bigger. And the biggest jump from last year to this year is the building that we're currently in. So you've made a lot of investments, and that's going to continue to grow that investment. That orange colored bar there is restricted, meaning it's restricted for another purpose. So you have some other millages and other restrictions, and that's really what that orange piece is. The teal piece is what's left. So you are in a very solid position from a total net position standpoint. So again, although that teal portion got a little bit smaller, that still represents what your unrestricted resources are after your investment in your capital assets, and any restricted funds. Lastly, we wanted to give you just a quick update on the water fund. So we summarized the current year activity on this slide for you. So starting on the left, you'll see your operating revenue of just over 950,000, operating expenses of just over $1 million, depreciation expense or the use of the system, right? The deterioration of the system does get you to an operating loss of just over 270,000. So I don't mention this to alarm anyone. I think it, sure. Should you choose to see it that way? Sure. I think the message here though isn't so much are you underwater, but focusing on are the current users of the system paying the expenses that are being incurred to get the water to them, right? And I know you work very closely with the county during the rate setting process, and that's great. I think they're still doing a lot of the administrative work for you and probably can give you a lot of great information on the expenses. So I just encourage you to monitor. I know this water fund is still relatively new to the township. I think this might be the third or fourth year, somewhere in there. It's still relatively new since those assets have come over from the county. So I think just monitoring the position of this fund, making sure that when you're thinking about setting the rates, making sure they're in line with the expenditures, and just keeping an eye on this. Oh, well, there you go. I'm leading it right in for you. I do what I can. So again, just monitoring the trend of that fund, I think, is the important part there. Lastly, I do have just a few comments I wanted to share on our end of audit letter. Many of you probably remember getting an email from us at the beginning of our audit telling you how we have anticipated our audit to go or how we've planned for it to go. This is the bookend to that letter that tells you how our audit did go. So I just wanted to point out a couple of things in here to you. On the second page, this is our letter that conveys to you any areas that the township could improve control-wise. We did identify 2 areas, one of which is a carryover from last year. I think all those online IT controls have been corrected. I think that was just, it was identified last year and carried over a little bit into 2022. And then we did assist with a few accrual only items. And the important thing here that I wanted to point out is the accrual items were just that year-end entries that we finalized during our audit. I think what that means to all of you is that the information you're getting from an accounting standpoint throughout the year on a cash basis doesn't require adjustment. So you're not getting numbers and seeing numbers and making decisions on numbers that are changing significantly through the audit process. These were just 2 entries to get them into the right period. So I think, that to you, that means that the information you're getting throughout the year is valid and can be relied upon. The next few pages just provide you a little bit more insight on how our audit went. We had no disagreements with management. We identified no other transactions recorded in the incorrect period, and had no other significant and no other issues. Beginning on page 5, we just like to keep you apprised of all the new things going on out in the world and the things coming at you from a local unit perspective. Certainly nothing that we need to, go in depth today on, but I just wanted to point all these areas out. There's, links and resources at your fingertips here. And certainly lots of things to think about, but I just wanted to point those out to you. Certainly, if you have questions after today, we'd be happy to go over any questions that you have, but just wanted to let you know that that's there for your benefit. I'm happy to take any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
As I was thinking about your presentation today, I thought, well, you know, so a lot of this stuff is real technical. And I'm sure a lot of people, it's pretty challenging. And, but I was thinking about some of the more where the rubber meets the road issues, especially like the purchasing policy and things and something like that. How can a resident understand the importance of it or why we even have it?
Sure. Definitely I can, maybe point out the purchasing policy. So let's use that as an example. So I would argue that all policies you have in place are meant to be a guidebook. So all similar transactions are handled the same way, right? Consistency being the key. So let's point out the purchasing policy. So as you're, entering into large contracts, I'll pick on, all the construction that you've done in the last few years, right? If you didn't have a purchasing policy in place, can you imagine how difficult those contracts would have been to monitor? And, you bid them out and you have guidelines. So, when you're going to engage in a project of some kind or purchase goods, you pull out your purchasing policy and say, okay, here's how we're going to handle it. So all things and all similar transactions are handled in a uniform manner. So I think that is what makes all policies important and including purchasing policies. Now, I think the other thing about a purchasing policy in particular is you guys also have been getting some federal grant awards, right? Those rules on that federal grant awards are very stringent and very detailed about how, if you need to bid out a project, what the thresholds are and what policies you need to adhere to. So again, making sure that you're thinking about federal projects too. I know you're using your ARPA funding for payroll, but the concept would apply if you get another federal award. Are we following federal guidelines? And you'd have to adhere to your own and federal. So I highly recommend policies for a variety of things, right? Because it keeps everyone following the same guidelines and following the same set of rules to ensure that there are no outliers. So I don't know if that answered your question, but okay.
All right, any other questions? Judy, microphone. Pull that a little closer to you. Thank you.
So, the ARPA funds.
Mhm.
What did we get total, like 2 million or? So is that exempt from a single audit?
It is not. So the single audit threshold is in any year that you spend $750,000 or more, you are required to do a single audit. Or if ARPA is the reason for the single audit, they actually made not an exception, but you can do, it's similar to like an agreed upon procedures type process.
Okay, I wondered if it was because it was a one-time.
Yeah, so I think they kind of realized that funding probably it threw a lot of communities into a single audit situation for that grant only. So they did create a set of procedures that still need to be performed, but it's not a full-blown single audit.
Okay.
And we've been talking quite a bit on this, how you're going to use your ARPA funding strategically each year to try and avoid that.
Okay.
Just trying to keep out of the way of a
keep it
single
easy.
audit. Yeah.
We make,
Not that anything's easy, but
No,
yeah.
but you don't need to add layers to it, right?
Sure.
so we knew we had the option of spending 750,000 of just the ARPA funds, but again, it's an unmodified audit
Yeah.
of types. So we've been monitoring it and making sure we don't go over.
Yeah.
Because we do have the CDBG funds too.
Yeah.
That we have to include in there. So
Yeah.
then the third quarter payroll, that's where we adjust how much we spend on payroll to make sure it doesn't go over the 750,000.
So, and I don't know if it was clear, we took our 2 million and we divided it into thirds because you're allowed to spend it over 3 years. So that's close to 700,000 a year. And that's how we're staying under that 750 cap.
I have a question.
Yeah.
General question on the ranking of our township with respect to our other townships in Oakland County or wherever. Where do you think we stand in top 10?
In overall fiscal health,
Yeah, and our quality and our performance and our capabilities.
Number one.
yeah, you're the best.
I just want to hear it from the,
So while I can't comment that you're the best, I will say from a fiscal standpoint, I think you guys are very conscious about your expenditures and making sure that you're not spending outside of your means. You're very thoughtful about, again, saving. You've undertaken some very big projects and not had to bond for all those. And I think a lot of that is driven by your legacy costs. Your OPEB is very, very well funded, which I think puts you in a stronger financial position than some of your neighboring communities, just because you don't have to fight the legacy cost battle. I think that's very hard for some other communities to address. And so I think that puts you in a strong position, a strong financial position. And your team does a great job. I mean, like I said, I know the audit adds a lot of extra time to everyone's plate in March. We come out and camp for 2 weeks and, everyone's very accommodating and the team's great to work with. So we certainly have enjoyed working with the township.
we expanded the building just so you'd have more room to work.
I know, we need to expand our team. It's so beautiful.
I just want to say thank you. It's so nice to work with you guys because, we're a small town
Sure.
and you guys, this is real technical stuff and you help us. And we appreciate your assistance. And also I appreciate the hard work of the bookkeeping and treasurer's office. We couldn't do it without our great staff.
Absolutely. I agree. Any other questions?
I have a quick question. What do you think is going to be one of the most challenging things that townships around our size will have to deal with in the coming years?
Honestly, I think it's the accounting standards that keep coming out. It's not getting any easier. I know the township is continuing to grow and that's great. That strains resources. Accounting, again, all of the new accounting standards, I just think even in the last 5 years, and it's going to continue. I mean, when I started, so I've been with Plant 15 years, I think we were on GASB 40 something, and we're going to cross 100. So, I mean, things are just quickly changing and we certainly stay up on that stuff. So your team doesn't have to, but to Tammy's point, it just takes a lot of time to keep up on that. And it's not a post the entry once and you're done. It's now I have to revisit this leases accounting every year. And, I think that's going to be a challenge for a lot of communities. Not everybody just has extra resources at their fingertips. I think staffing, a lot of communities have open positions and that's going to continue to be a struggle. But I would say just keeping up with everything that's changing.
All right, any others?
It's the same as having legal counsel at every meeting. We don't have all the expertise in managing the township as properly as we would like to have. That's why you're an extension of our board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Missy, did you?
Oh, sure. So, yeah, nope, that's a great question. So OPEB is the township's health benefits that are provided upon retirement. So it stands for other post-employment benefits. And legacy costs are just benefits promised to employees here at the township. So Many communities have pension benefits that have been provided. The township does not. The township offers health for retirees to a certain population of retirees. I should clarify that. Does that answer?
All right.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you guys very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'll even say that was exciting.
Oh, I try. You know, it's not always, I'm sure when you see your agenda, you're like, oh, it's the audit time again, but we greatly appreciate, like I said, everything that you guys do. And certainly for being excited that we're here. I don't get that very often.
Well, I say that because I'm married to a CPA, so she gets excited over accounting, so I know this is exciting. So
Yeah.
thank you very much.
My husband has learned a lot through COVID about what I do every day. So through many phone calls. So I can appreciate that.
All right. Well, thank you very much and appreciate it.
Thank you,
And,
guys.
We'll see you sooner than later. That's all right. Thank you. All right. Everybody now is well educated on how good a job our staff has done in keeping Highland on the top of things here in Oakland County. So let's move on to the next part. This is pending business. This has to do with Star EMS. What happened is we needed to sign an agreement, if I get this right, Nick, that Star EMS does our bookkeeping for the EMS services that we produce. And so at the last board meeting, we didn't have a completed document that we could approve. So we put it off into the next meeting, which is this one. So can make this pretty easy. I'm going to make a motion to approve the billing of service agreement with Miles Grubb and Associates LLC, DBA Star EMS, and allowing the township supervisor to sign that agreement. That was a motion.
Cooper support.
Okay, moved and supported. Anybody have any questions? All right, if not, then we'll move on to a vote, please.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is new business. And this is an introduction only, so Mr. West, I think you understand that we don't vote on anything other than to introduce this for another meeting. I never have really understood all that. Jenny, can you explain that? Why we would do that?
It's state law, but it would be to let people
Have time to
have
comment.
time to comment on it and see it in different places.
Okay, so it's a tactical, I won't call it a tactic, but it's the ability for more public to be able to have opportunities to express their opinions. So on that note, then what we'll do is I'll go ahead with a motion on this one. Make the motion to introduce the rezoning request for let's see, we're going to want to put this thing here. Get this right here. There we go. Okay, motion to introduce zoning amendment Z028 to rezone property ID number 11-34-176-007 vacant South Milford Road property south of Reed Road from C1 local commercial to C3 low impact commercial with offer of conditions from applicant Bandery Properties LLC.
Support Lewis.
Okay, moved and supported. Anybody have any questions? Okay, we have no questions, so we'll vote to introduce.
Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
So Mr. West will see at the next step of that. And I want to thank you for the good job you've done with the commercial that's there in terms of, a very positive addition to the commercial component of Highland, which, I mean, that used to be a car dealership when I was a kid. So it actually looks much better than it did during that period. So thank you for your investment in the community, and we'll be looking forward to the next step. All right. Did you have any comments? You want to say anything? Or? All right. Thank you. Okay, the next item, item B, I'm going to have somebody that's new to our staff here at Highland Township do a presentation on, if you want to call it a presentation on Highland DDA wayfinding signage program. So Cassie Blasek, would you step up to the microphone? And Cassie is a DDA board member and also was recently hired to be my assistant. So she's got her feet deep in the mud. So go ahead.
Hello. So in your board packets, you will have noticed our proposal from the DDA for a wayfinding signage program that we are interested in putting in the DDA district, along with potentially 6 additional coordinating signs throughout the township. We're hoping that your commitment to the project will create a cohesive look within the township with our branding and wayfinding throughout the community. An example is brought to you by the company we've been working with, Pete here in the audience, and he's put together a mock sample for you to view. It describes, it has the logo that we're utilizing, and then the signage components, which include the lettering and all the details. Within the packet, you'll find the signage, which includes, I think there's 12 signs in the DDA district and 6 that we're requesting township funding for. And there's examples of the verbiage that will be found on each of the signs. And then it includes what the back of each sign will look like as well. So the graphics, we've gone through, the construction drawings are detailed, describing how it will be secured. Is there any questions?
I have a comment. I sit on the design committee and we have been looking at these wayfinding signs. We've gotten them down to these words because it was quite hard. What did you guys decide about the trial areas? Dog trial? Have we decided yet? No.
So it was brought to our attention that there may be some potential confusion on the northbound Milford Road across from Calasani's sign that dictates mountain bike / dog trials. There's been concern that maybe it's spelled incorrectly. It's not.
The answer to that is that the common term for it is field trials. It is the word trials. It's a contest or a test. And so it's dog done with dogs. So it's dog trials. It's not dog trails. People assume that, like horse trails, bike trails, walking trails, but it's not trails, it's trials. So it's not spelled incorrectly, it's correct. And I think a lot of people don't understand, Mr. Eichinger in some emails went out and took some pictures of the signs that the state produced. And I'm pretty sure they're not going to make a mistake on their, 5 or 6 different signs in the community that all say trials. So it's field trials for dogs for hunting. So the smallest graphical component we can put on there is dog trials to get the spacing correctly. It's not on that sign, but the number of letters makes a big difference in what you can put on the signs to make your statement of where you're heading. So it is correct. It's dog trials. So
Also, I want to point out the back of the sign. It's the black picture here with our logo and a train track. It looks, I don't know if you have gone around the other side. It looks very nice.
So that will, this image that I'm pointing to will be the image on all the signs. So there's a, that branding element is continuing throughout the township.
One question, is there any reason we have to keep it that length? Could it be longer? Is there some restriction for that length if we made them longer to elongate the letter spacing? Just a comment.
Yeah, that would be.
Pete, would you like to,
Couple reasons. Number one, it's in a few of the areas that we're attempting to put this, one of these structures is going to be near a sidewalk, and we didn't want anybody to bump into it and the length. We also wanted to keep it at a maximum of 5 destinations on each sign, no more than that. Right, yeah. Just, it's,
it's a
as
scale.
it is, it's 40 inches long, 32 high. We felt that was a pretty good sized structure to put up there. So actually the post will be, according to the road commission, we cannot be less than 7 feet from the bottom of that sign down to the grade.
It becomes a scale issue is what happens.
So we have blue and green, and then is this burgundy or? it's hard to
Yes.
see in this
So,
light. Are we
that is-
incorporating that into our brand, that new other colors?
So the signs themselves are colors based on like districts, and we kind of started running out of the branding colors. So that is in the South District near Milford High School, and we felt that the color would make sense that it's near the school. And like the Industrial District, I think is brown. So it's, like that kind of feeler that feeler vibe that you would get maybe from that area or location within the township.
We definitely don't want orange to be confused with Oakland County
We
repairs.
had orange and they made us change it because they thought it would look like construction. So
Is there any reflective qualities to the characters at night for visibility?
yeah, if I remember correctly, yes, all the text is going to be appropriate for reading at night. And actually the fonts and sizes are regulated from the road commission and what they want us to use. So those are, they're what they're requiring of us.
I have a question on verbiage. So I see Steeple Hall on here. Is that what we're going to call that building?
Yes.
Okay, let's use it.
This was one of the things
Been
that,
an ongoing conversation.
yeah, some people call it the Art Council building, the old church, the Highland Station House. And when you start to think about Highland Station House, there's a Highland Station House on the corner across from Roscoe's. Their sign's no longer there, but they had that name there before. And the other part is start discussing what defines it. It's not a house, it's a old church. So Steeple Hall gives you a short wording to kind of define the building so that you're looking for a steeple. And that's going to help you get, I think, that closer to identifying it immediately. Oh, steeple, that's it. It's that yellow building there with the steeple on it. So there was discussion, plenty of discussion with the DDA on what to do with it. And it would be nice to settle on something, because in this building, we call it the annex because of the senior activity center there. It's their annex. And so it's very confusing for everybody. If you want to have a sign that you can try and put Highland Station House then we'd have to do what Joe said, we have an extension of about a foot on the sign to get it on there, so.
So the plan is to put a sign in front of it that says Steeple Hall.
Annex, yeah, no,
That would be
Yes.
awesome. Thank you.
Yes, that is the potential.
yes,
That is the plan down the road. And just consider this project a continuation of the DDA's branding and marketing campaign that we've been pushing to identify the township. So this will again just bring 3 people through the community and it'll give this a nice cohesive feel. And I think it'll help people understand where we're located and how to get through the township.
Is the Huron Valley Schools, is that new? I didn't remember that being on there, like in the Burgundy under Milford High School. Huron Valley Schools.
that's the board office.
Okay. I just didn't remember it in our conversation.
I guess I don't see that one.
The Burgundy page.
What page is it? Page 1, 2, or 3?
So there's blue, green, burgundy, or pink, or,
Mine's printed in black.
oh,
So, what page?
I can't help you then.
She used Roscoe's sheets.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Pete, is that new? Is that Huron Valley Schools new, or did we have it the whole time? I don't remember it. Okay.
But then that people would go, what's HVS? Huron Valley Vet,
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it works and it fits within the letter count, so.
so.
Yep.
All right, so I guess the part of it, I don't know whether it got defined adequately in that. In our packet, it explains it pretty well, but what happens is the DDA can only spend money on elements within the DDA district. So in order to carry forward more wayfinding for the rest of the community, the township has to be a partner in funding the additional signs that are outside of the DDA district that may point to it, but also point to other elements that may not be in a DDA district. So like the parks to the north are not in a DDA district. So, but you still want people to be directed there. So that's the reason that Cassie, as a member of the DDA, is here requesting the township to help fund this project. So. And I'm not sure what page it is of the documentation, but it's the page that on the lower part, it has funding by DDA and funding by HTWP.
Has those numbers changed?
Those are the updated numbers.
Those are the updated ones.
So we made some modifications in the first round. Pete, do you have that little sign? Now, we do have our attorney here in case he falls, so.
Yeah. We can tell. This is maybe a little. Precision cut. So we have very sturdy. This is just
You can see much more than.
Yeah. We're gonna make sure that it has that built-in tilt because it's
Yes.
Highland, you know, the
Yeah,
highest
the-
point, so that.
Oh,
Yeah,
That's for real. That's for real. There is a special piece of duct tape up there trying to hold it in
yes.
place, so.
Keep in mind, again, this is just a sample. This is not.
Sample,
what
yeah.
it's gonna-
Is there any
Cut out
concern,
of
is there any concern about the visibility of a sign that's cut openly like that?
So that has definitely
When
been.
you have
put-
no background to it. I mean,
Yep, it's been put into discussion repeatedly and we've looked at samples in other communities across the country and everybody on the design committee felt very strongly with this design and is excited to move forward with it.
say that again.
Yes, lots of consideration went into that. We've met over the course of the last 6 months designing these concepts and the design committee looked at examples from other communities with similar ideas. And everything was very legible. They didn't have any back,
There's
Un-
nothing that would cause losing that Highland with a tree behind it or other, something else that would lose the wording.
I think in some cases you might, like if it's really sunny out or something, you might lose something, but I think the identity and the concept of it is that sometimes with art, like I'm looking at this as an artistic piece, sometimes it's the imagery or the illusion of something, like it's there. And over time, what we're looking at. So the idea again of branding and kind of pushing our imagery out is that, the more and more you do it, it'll be known to the public, but I don't think there will be an issue with it.
Okay, I mean, if you put a whiteboard behind that, it would definitely jump out pretty clear.
Except then you'd
Okay.
only see it from one direction.
If we're worried about the
Yeah,
structural
you
part,
own, yeah, you're only reading it from one side as well. And it's gonna be the way they're positioned within the medians or the locations along the sidewalks is that they're gonna be at heights for either pedestrians or traffic or cars or is that, you're gonna be reading it, approaching it. So I think it'll be an okay thing. I really do.
I agree.
Cassidy, just a quick question. What do you think the longevity of the signs would be? I mean, with
The
the,
life expectancy.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. What you'd get out of a traditional, community graphic or sign, I'd say 20 to 30 years is what the life expectancy is before we
what's
might
the
want to change
material?
them. And we can update them. Each panel will be like, if we add an additional item or park to the community, the signs can have, they'll be able to change out.
What is the material that's the actual
Aluminum, isn't it, Pete? The
Not
panels
the
aluminum.
Highland, the actual sign.
Aluminum.
Those
And-
are aluminum too? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on this graphic here where the cost breakdown is, it describes all of the materials for you as well. And then he's also included for you like an elevation of the construction and how it would actually be assembled.
I think a good example is just think about the signs that the county puts out there. They're aluminum signs with an applique on them and they last for years and years and years.
They have
And
reflective
Same,
vinyl is much sturdier than normal vinyl type of homes. And the posts will be aluminum, the sign panel itself will be aluminum, the various sites will be aluminum, and the logo will be aluminum. Doesn't rust, so. And there is along Milford Road and M59 as our two primary travel routes. We do have to put what's called a breakaway system in, required by the road commission. It's called the dent. That was another not an option, but a kind of
Requirement.
requirement that we had to include there, which somewhat bumped our costs up.
microphone.
Any salt issues that might affect that as far as chemical reaction to the metal, stuff like that?
It's gonna be quite a bit off the roadways, so I don't think that's an issue.
Yeah, and most of these will be mounted like 8 to 10 feet plus in the air.
I think he meant on the post. maybe.
Oh, gotcha. I was thinking like
But
plow
no,
trucks
the sign-
throwing.
that'll be all.
Well, the beauty is that the post is a standard 4-inch aluminum post that's powder coated, so they're easily replaced. And like you said, the dent, as they call it, that's the bottom breakaway, is the most expensive part of the whole thing. But required by the MDOT and the county. So we're using materials that are really long term, and in personal response to the graphic itself, it's one of those things that you want people to see, but it is a little bit behind what it's really there for. You're supposed to be reading the sign and not overly caught by the logo on there. So the logo is just an art feature that gets replicated through the community, so it makes our graphic more aware to more people. So when you come in here, you see it, you'll see it, signs on the buildings, the Chilton Mill will have signs that replicate that same type of graphic. So we'll carry that on through. So any other questions?
Wind durability, I mean, when you get high winds, is it structurally strong enough to flap or?
It's all gonna be secured there with stainless steel hardware. Or welded. Oh, yeah.
Like I said, it's very much like a stop sign or the traffic signs. I mean, yeah, the wind can might shake around a little bit. These will be a little bit stiffer than a stop sign.
Yep. And again, on the graphic, you featured, the collars for securing, how it's going to be constructed. All those details have been thoroughly thought out and answered.
All right.
Any other question? Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you, Cassie.
Move to approve the township spending $15,268 for fabrication and installation of wayfinding signs outside of the DDA district.
Support, Salvia.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion on that? Then if not, we'll vote, please.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Clerk, Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Sylvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mr. Hamel,
Hamel, yes.
motion carries.
Okay, the next item is a budget amendment to approve before we spend. They're not here to hear us do this. So somebody want to make a motion?
I would move to approve the budget amendment to transfer the funds for the signage as presented.
Okay, moved
Support Lewis.
and supported. Vote, please.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Sylvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Hamel,
Hamel, yes.
motion carries.
Okay, the next item is a budget amendment to appropriate funds from capital improvement to the road fund for additional dust control in the tri-party program that we engage in with the Oakland County. So can we get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Salvia.
What's that? Get a second on that?
Frederick, second.
Okay, discussion?
Is this different than, we already approved the chloride and everything, right?
A dust
March?
control, but there's a additional funding that we have to put towards that and the tri-party program.
So this is tri-party money.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I would just add that, so when we wrote the budget for this year, we didn't put the normal amount in as a transfer from capital to road fund. We did a very minimal amount in the original budget. And then, so this fully funds the program.
Thanks, Tammy. Okay. Vote, correct? Vote, please. Yep.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
Right, the next item is a budget amendment to the general fund. As you heard in our presentation by our auditors, about having fund balance, maintaining it within a 40 to 60% range. This is a movement that we need to make in order to keep us in that position. So somebody want to make a motion on this?
I would move to approve the budget amendment to transfer money from general to capital improvement for $1,500,000.
Support Lewis.
Moved and supported. Vote please.
Can I just quickly add that, so your financial that you're looking at, we had assigned the money within general fund. And then now with this budget amendment, we can move it to capital improvement fund as we have in the past. A lot of this money reflects our surplus because of the ARPA money coming into the general fund. So that's it. You ready to
Right.
vote?
Vote please.
Okay. Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis.
Lewis, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Mr. Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item has to do with Jennifer Frederick's belief that she needs help.
I do need help.
The deputy treasurer Karen Jensen has announced her retirement, and Chantel Green is currently training as a replacement. So just for general information for the public, 3 in-house elected officials, the treasurer and the clerk, are required by law to have deputies. There's no choice. It's required by law. The supervisor is not required to have a deputy and can do so by choice, but at the approval of the board. It's not a position that's really critical like it is to have somebody to be a secretary or assistant to the deputy treasurer, I should say. So in this case, our current treasurer, Jennifer Frederick, is in mid-term losing her deputy treasurer that she started out with. And so it's imperative by law that she hire somebody else. And her choice is Chantel Green. And so Jenny, why don't you finish up on that? Tell
Okay.
us why it's important.
Well, it's very important, but that's not why we're here today. We're here to hire for Chantel's replacement. So
Okay.
Chantel does end up if we do appoint, or if I do appoint her as deputy, then we'll need someone to take her spot. But a deputy is very important to a treasurer. They do day-to-day stuff that is my job if I'm not available. So,
Okay.
and
So this is the last, it's a little bit different approach that we've taken. The last position was for a maintenance person where we approved the position, and that's what we're looking to do here because we're still looking for somebody to fill a position, but we need to have the approval to have the position to fill. So that's what this request is for, and it's not for an individual, but for the position.
so this position exists. I would like to just the ability to hire possibly before our July 10th meeting, in case we got someone that we could start training. So, and on my memo, I've asked for $21 an hour. I've had conversations with other board members, and I would like to change that down to $19 an hour. So I'm just asking that the board approve that after conducting interviews with our interview committee, the treasurer is allowed to hire to fill Chantel's treasurer's office assistant position starting the earliest June 19th, 2023, full-time at $19 per hour.
I'll just make that a motion.
I did, yeah.
Are you
Cooper
making a
support.
motion? Because you said I'm asking.
I move,
Cooper support.
Okay, moved and supported. Any questions?
No,
Okay,
I just asked, her first phrase was not clear as a motion. She was kind of changing the rate.
okay, so we'll have a vote, please.
I was just gonna comment that I know it's hard to predict what appropriate pay will be until you've met the person. I would say that, 19, I think, is a good baseline. And then if perchance you find someone you feel that deserves more, you can always come back to the board and ask for a little more.
I agree.
Okay. That was my comment.
All right. Vote, please.
Okay. Mr. Salvia,
Sylvia, yes?
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Hamel,
Hamel, yes.
motion carries.
I have to say that I don't envy any of the elected officials' positions, especially treasurer, to have to make those kinds of changes in the middle of a term and then have to change your throws your everything into a loop. And I want to say that Jenny has done a phenomenal job as treasurer and has taken on the responsibility with mucho gusto. I mean, you've done a great job, and you deserve to find somebody to be an assistant, and I know you'll make it work. And yeah, you've done a great job. So thank you on that. All right, the next item is resolution 23. It's 23-15. It's to approve the water supply rates. This was brought up by our Plant Moran consultants when they were talking about our water system. And if you noticed, we weren't in the quote operate in the black, so that this is to help make sure that we keep things in a positive manner. Water is not to make money. It's a item that is relatively important to a number of people in the community, some fire suppression. There's a lot of elements for it. So, but we do have to, the system declines on a daily basis. So it's always a move to make sure that you keep things in good working order, so on and so forth. There's been expenditures like roofs on well house buildings. What was the price on that thing? 60? Huge amount of money to rebuild the roof on one of the well houses. But you have to do it. So those are things that have to be borne by the rates that and the water that's used. And only people who are on the water system pay for these bills. So we want to make sure that we aren't, burying people in costs. So anyways, the resolution that's in front of us here, let's see if I can bring this up. Okay. So this was a decisions made between in-house officials and the Water Resource Commission based on their judgments as well as to what kind of rates we should be looking at. So if you look at this chart, can you guys see that all right? It's based on meter size, which basically establishes volume. And these are increases, correct? Yep.
Base rate has increased $5 from 100 per quarter to 105 per quarter. And then volume charge for water supply system has increased by, oops, did I just read that twice? Okay. $5 from 20 to $25 for usage over 1,500 cubic feet per quarter. So the 105 is a base rate that everybody gets quarterly. And then the $25 is if you go over, let's say you water your lawn or fill a pool, something that's over the 1,500 cubic feet per quarter. I don't know what the meter sizes are based on.
Says that the rates for the Charter Township Highland Water System established at a base rate of 11.5 per quarter with a volume charge $25 per 1,000 cubic foot. For usage over, so plus a quarterly meter service charge. So that's for any potential maintenance on the meter. Sometimes these things do fail, not too often, but okay, so that's page 1. And page 2 is the resolution. So I guess if we could get somebody to make a motion to approve the rates.
I would move to approve resolution 23-15 for, to approve the water supply rates for 2023 as presented.
Support, Sylvia.
Okay, moved and supported. Anybody have any questions on this?
It'll keep us from going underwater.
What's that? Under what? From going underwater. Yeah, it'll keep us from going underwater. So. Yeah, the whole water thing is pretty interesting. I mean, it's quite complex. I think it's one of those things that you know, personal note, to water through the entire township could be an incredibly huge expenditure that I don't think people in our community really would be up and ready to cover the cost of. So especially being quote rural like we are. So, all right. So on that note, vote please.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Sylvia, yes.
Mr. Hamel,
Hamel, yes.
motion carries.
All right. On that note, meeting is adjourned.